us economically. Countries always do that, and we are competing with them. It's the way it is. All right. Checking accounts, kind of a newer phenomenon. So these are things that banks have historically done. And trust services, and we'll look at each of these things in more detail through the semester. But trust services means that you are taking care of someone's business, okay, in their absence. Okay? They're turning over some responsibility to you. So you're taking care of them. Okay? So where you run into trust services most frequently as an individual is when somebody dies. Okay? Then the bank trust department will step in and manage the liquidation and distribution of the estate. Okay? Oops. Okay, some newer things. Okay? Equipment leasing. What does that mean? That means the bank takes ownership of the equipment, they buy the equipment, and then they allow the user of the equipment to rent it. So the user of the equipment doesn't have to put it on their balance sheet. It's an operating expense. Okay? Okay. Merchant banking, which is more commercial lending. Managing cash for clients, that means making sure that just enough cash is maintained and any excess cash is invested. Okay? Payment guarantor, that means signing as a backup. So if a private business agrees to do a transaction, then the bank will step in and say, if they default, we'll cover it. It's insurance. That's payment guarantor. Okay. In the last 20 years, banks have gotten into investment banking. Why? Law changes have allowed it. Investment banking. Risk management and hedging. Okay? These are all financial services that have been done outside of banking. Now they're being done in banking. Do your notes not have this? All right. Okay. Okay. I see. All right. Venture capital loans. Banks historically were not set up to make venture capital loans. They're highly risky. Okay? Chances are when you make a venture capital loan, you're going to lose your money. Okay? That's not what banks are set up to do. Banks are set up to prudently lend money. If you have adequate cash flow and adequate collateral, you'll get a loan from a bank. But if you go in with a brand new idea, and it could be a great idea, but you don't have cash flow, a history of cash flow, and you don't have collateral, a traditional bank is not going to loan you the money. But a venture capital firm will. And the difference is, a venture capital firm is counting on earning 30 to 35% on their investment, whereas a bank is counting on earning 6 or 7% on their investment. So the venture capital firm is willing to take the risk that you're not going to be successful, whereas a bank won't take that risk because the return's not high enough. They're different businesses completely. All right. Offering retirement plans to business. Okay. That started in the insurance industry. And then it moved into the investment industry. And those two groups do get out. Okay? And now banks have gotten into insurance and investments, and they're offering these plans. How do they do it? By buying an investment company or by buying an insurance company that has a history of doing that, but now they're doing it. Okay? Again, convergence. All right, security brokerage, financial advising, and selling insurance. So this is convergence. Insurance companies, I can call my broker, my agent at State Farm, and I can get a home loan. And in fact, he called me a couple of years ago and said, hey, we're offering home loans. And then he started laughing, and he said, I get $500 for every home loan I originate. If you're going to refi, give us a shot. Okay? That's convergence. In the past, legally, you couldn't do that. Now you can. They're all doing each other's business. Okay? And you know, it sounds good on paper, but I'll tell you this. I'm not going to go to a family practice doctor to have heart surgery. And I'm not going to go to a heart surgeon to have brain surgery. And that's what we're talking about here. Completely different lines of business. And on paper, you look at it and go, oh, well, sure. They can do that. It's not a problem. Oh, it's a problem. It looks great on paper. Okay. So these are the different roles that banks play. Whoops. And, you know, this is just a kind of a rehash of what we've already gone over. Is that Court, I think that was the table we were talking about. Okay. So I would encourage you, so that you understand what banks do, to review this. I know it's a lot of words, but review it. It helps explain what banks do. Okay. And you know, I think if you're going to go to work for a bank, if a bank is an area where you think you might go and interview, taking this course will be helpful. Because when you walk in the door, you'll be a lot more familiar with how a bank is set up and how bankers see things, so that when you interview, you can share that insight with them, than a person who comes in and says, well, I've got an art degree. Okay? Now they're still looking for skills, and they're looking for a personality and ethics and trainability. So the person who has the art degree still has a shot at the job. But all things being equal, if you have the insight and you understand and you start throwing out your insights and understanding of banking, you're going to have a leg up on the competition. Okay? So even though this is dry stuff, if you interview with a bank, I promise you it'll help you. Okay, so who are some of the names y'all need to be familiar with? Well, Deutsche Bank. It's a German company, big bank. Okay. UBS. They're a big bank and a big investment bank. Citigroup. This is an American company. And all these companies do the same things. They're big. These are big money center banks that you need to be familiar with. Okay. Barclays, a huge bank out of London. JP Morgan Chase. And Bank of America. So these are the big global banks that you need to be familiar with. All right. These are investment banks and broker-dealers. And Merrill Lynch used to be the largest, but in 2009, we lost almost all of our investment banks. They were purchased by other banks, or they applied for and received bank charters, because the laws are different, the regulators and the regulations are different, and they were able to raise capital. Otherwise, they were going bankrupt. Okay? So Merrill and Goldman, okay, these are the two biggest. Now Goldman is considered, for years Merrill was considered to be the Cadillac. And then in the last 20 years it's Goldman. They're the gold standard. Okay? But that gold was tarnished back in 2008, 2009, because they contributed in a major way to the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. They did a bunch of bad stuff. And they justified it by saying, we were just doing what our customers wanted us to do. It was a lie. Why did they do it? Well, why do all businesses do what they do? They do it for money.
You said it was Goldman that did that?
Yes. All the investment banks and the commercial banks participated in just crazy, stupid practices. They all went crazy, okay? But Goldman was one of the worst, most brazen offenders, okay? They developed mortgage-backed bonds, sold them to clients, and then bet that those bonds would go bad. The bonds they created. Okay? And they claimed, well, we were just trying to manage our portfolio. Is there some truth to that? Yeah, there is some truth to that. But was that the main reason they did it? No. But can you imagine? Can you imagine building a house? You're a contractor and you're building a house and you're able to buy homeowner's insurance on that house, knowing that that you were told to cut corners, particularly with electrical. You know there's going to be a fire and that house will burn down. That's a conflict of interest. Okay? That's a moral hazard. All right. Insurance companies, Prudential and Metropolitan, and finance companies, GMAC. GE, General Electric, the maker of light bulbs and appliances and railroad locomotives and jet engines, used to be the largest finance company in the world, but they got taken down. Okay? So a lot of industrial companies like GE and Ford and General Motors, GMAC loans money to people to buy General Motors cars. Finance, industrial companies saw how much money and what the profit margins were in finance, and they moved into finance. All right. All right, so there's a cycle, okay? You have crisis, reform, change. So deregulation can lead to better efficiency, higher profits, higher returns. That's deregulation. Okay? But this eventually leads to speculation and excessive risk-taking. And that's what happens all the time. We go from making smart investments to speculating. And when people see speculation paying off, everybody wants a piece of that. So what's the biggest speculation going on right now? Bitcoin. Bitcoin. It's a speculation. Okay? And if you make money in Bitcoin, you're not smart. You are not smart. What are you? You're lucky. You're lucky. Okay? Is it an educated investment that you're making? No. Why? Because you don't have a clue how to assess it. That's why. All right? So you're throwing your money in there because you've watched it go up. And you think, well, it's gone up, it's going to continue to go up. But it could go down just as quickly. And you don't have any idea why it's going up except that other people are doing the same thing you're doing. And because you don't know why it's really going up, you don't know what could cause it to go down. So you're not investing, you're gambling. Okay. It's okay. All right. So the speculation and risk-taking leads to a crisis. Okay? Which then leads to re-regulation. Okay? That's how it works. Over and over and over again. So every 10 years or so, we have a big crisis in America. Because we let things, we call it a bubble, grow and grow and grow and grow, and then bam, yeah. And people get rich along the way because they're lucky. And then it bursts, and we never know exactly when it's going to burst. And some people are bankrupted because they're unlucky. And the people who are lucky, they're not better people and smarter people. Okay? And the people who are unlucky, they're not bad people or stupid people. Okay? All right. So, I can't impress upon you enough how much technology has impacted everything that we're doing. Okay? And it's only accelerating. Technology is begetting technology, and that's great. That's wonderful, man. I mean, that improves all of our lives, as long as we can manage it, you know, from a societal standpoint. All right. There will always be consolidation, convergence, geographic expansion, okay? All right. So what's available out there in banking for you? If you're looking for a finance-related job, what can you hope to get at a bank? Well, you can be a loan officer, okay? Okay, so loan officers are part financial analysts and part salespeople. You got to have a good personality. Okay? You got to go out there and identify potential borrowers and establish a relationship with them. Credit analysts. Okay, credit analysts typically work for loan officers. So the loan officer goes out there and finds prospects, borrowers, and then submits financial data, the loan applications, to the credit analysts. And the credit analysts work with the loan officers to tell them how much they should loan them and what they should charge them. Okay? So typically, when you get a finance degree, if you go to a bank, credit analyst is going to be your first entry-level job. Okay? All right. Managers of operations. Okay, to do that, you have to have legal skills, understand the regulations. This is not an entry-level job. Okay. Branch managers. Okay. The folks that run each location, similar to the manager of operations. Okay. You're going to be overseeing the operation of a bank in your area. Okay. Systems analysts. Okay. So now we're getting into areas that are typical of all businesses. Okay. So banks have in-house people, and then they also outsource their IT. Okay. Accounting. If you are an accountant and you don't want to practice public accounting, you want to practice corporate accounting or private sector accounting, you can do it at a bank or an insurance company. Okay. I'll tell you this, your hours are going to be a whole lot better. All right, trust department. Oops, there we go. So a lot of folks who work in trust departments go to law school. And they don't want to practice law, but they need to understand the law in order to carry out the functions of a trust department, which is to help people with their estate planning and to help people with their investment management. Okay? Now, more and more, the investment management is being moved out of the trust department. Trust departments historically have charged way too much for investment management. So you have an investment department now at a bank. So banks have long been involved in investments, but it's mostly been in the trust department. Now banks have moved into investment banking and in brokerage business, and more investment stuff is being moved over there from the trust department. All right, here's your entry-level job tellers. Okay, and you know it's a shame because most of us, the only contact we have with our bank is with the teller. Okay, and yet the teller is the lowest paid person at the bank. But they are the contact with all of our customers. All right, so you want to be a trader or an analyst, you can do it at a commercial bank. You don't have to go to an investment bank, okay? In sales, human resources, all these areas, just like any other company, okay? You can do all these things at a commercial bank. You don't have to go to other places necessarily to get these jobs. Okay? This is kind of an interesting job. If you are kind of a legal type and an accounting type, then the regulatory bodies want to hire you. There are lots of jobs examining banks. What are you examining them for? To make sure that they are in compliance with the rules and regulations that are out there, the financial requirements and the record-keeping requirements. Okay? And these are pretty good jobs, and we've had a few Harding students that have become bank examiners. Okay? You work for the regulatory bodies. You will not get rich being a bank examiner, but you'll make a good living. And I'll tell you this, you might start at 60 as a bank examiner, and at the end of your career, you might be making 100 or 120, okay? But you're going to be working 35 hours a week, and you're going to have lots of holidays, lots of vacation time. So you won't get rich immediately, but if you have a 30-year career, and I have a friend who went to graduate school with me, he was very smart, and he went to work, I think he worked for the Federal Reserve, I think. But he was a bank examiner, and he worked 25 years and only had one child, which is important, because if you have 4 or 5 kids, man, there goes your money, okay? And he retired a couple of years ago. Retired before me. And I've made a whole lot more money than he has. He retired. He's got a great pension. He has a pension and a 401k. Okay? And he built a house in the hills of North Carolina, and that's where he lives now, in the mountains of North Carolina. Okay? He didn't live in Atlanta. Ugh. He wants to deal with all that traffic. All right. It's a good life. And then, so bank examiners work for the regulatory bodies, but compliance officers work inside the bank. Okay? And they're the ones that interact with the bank examiners. So the compliance officers are the ones who make sure that the bank does their record keeping and meets the rules. And they're the ones that the examiners come in and say, okay, I need to see this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And the compliance officers are the ones that provide that information. Okay? So if you want to do compliance, which is legal and accounting, you can be here or you can be here. Okay? And a lot of times they go back and forth. So you might start here and then jump into here. And you'll make a whole lot more money here. But you'll be under a lot more pressure. All right, risk management, okay. Again, banks have gotten into insurance in a huge way.